Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ground Up with me, Natalee. I have been pursuing a career in acting for over a decade and have learned a lot. I built my career from the ground up, and I'm simply curious as to how other people did it too. I'm going to be gaining insights into how some of the most inspiring people got to where they are today. I'll interview entrepreneurs, actors, thought leaders, health experts, and many more. So if you're curious like me and gain motivation through inspiration, then this podcast is definitely for you. Welcome to season 2 of Ground Up with Natalee. Guys, today we have the amazing Danielle Campbell on, and she's an actress best known for her roles in Tell Me a Story and The Originals. And I ask her all of her audition stories. We talk a lot about the industry and how to break into it. We talk about networking if we think it's important. We also talk about the downtimes that we have when we're not working and when auditions are slow. We talk about auditioning in general and if we like Zoom or self-tapes or in person. There's a lot of good tidbits in here. We also talk about how to get started as an actor from the ground up and, whether it's sending those emails or crafting the perfect representation team. So definitely give this episode a listen. And as always, get your pen and paper out if you're not driving so you can take notes. All right, into the episode. Okay, so we were talking a little bit about overthinking, and I had a question about when you get pinned for something or you're up for a role or something, and there's a waiting period because your team tells you right away, right? They're like, hey, like you're in the mix, right? Unless you've told your team like, don't tell me until the end or something.
Like, I don't want to know.
I don't want to know. I like to know if I'm pinned just because I need hope throughout the weeks of like not working.
Yeah.
And like those would help. But in between those days where it's like, okay, the casting director sent me through to producers. Now the producers like me, so I'm pinned, which means it's like you and a couple other people, or you tested for a role. Those days after when you're waiting for me are like, I'm not sad. I'm just like, anxiously excited. Yeah. But it's also the worst feeling ever. I don't know. I can't describe it.
No, this is great because your audience also knows the steps that you're talking about too. I personally like to know that I'm in the mix for something. Also because like I have a partner. I want to be able to kind of plan out like if I'm moving to like to Europe next week, I kind of want to feel like we've talked about it,
Yeah, that's so true.
Because things can happen and you have to be on a plane the next day. And
Overnight.
It's like no part of me ever had this on my to-do list, but here we are. It's hard because like at the end, when you're pinned or you're on hold for something or you're one of like the top 2 or 3 picks for a role, you've gone through the rounds, you've met the people involved, you already see and envision yourself as this person. So do they, which is the only reason that you're at that stage. It's like all politics at that part. So it's like you already know that you're capable of this role. It's a matter of if it's yours. I don't think that part's ever going to get easier. And I really believe that it's because we are passionate about what we do. And I think that's what makes us such good artists. But it's also what makes it hard when you're told no.
Yeah.
And that is kind of like the inevitable part. You have to be prepared for that no that comes because it also makes the yes, it's you, like it makes it feel that much better.
It's all part of the process. It's literally, I feel like the process is like 80% of what we do. It depends on, right? Unless you're like, the 0.5% of working actors where you're just like, the Denzel, Tom Cruise, I don't know, where it's just like
the A-listers.
The A-listers. But other than that, you're auditioning for things and you're waiting for, the booking. And so that's the process and it's inevitable. Like you can't escape it.
It comes in waves too, right? Like you can be hitting role after role and like booking constantly and then have a couple year period where it's just silence.
Couple years.
That is hard. And you're not alone when that happens because that is pretty much, I really believe it's probably most actors' trajectory. Like for myself, I've acted since I was a kid. I've had years of not working, and then I've had jobs for years and never thought I would see the end of it. So it's part of the journey. It's a very humbling process to be an actor. I think it's a very humbling job and career to pursue. Because you're constantly told no, and you're also constantly told that you're amazing. And it's like you're getting kind of whiplash, but you're also putting yourself through the ringer intentionally, and it's something that you have to know that you're signing up for, and surround yourself with people that I think can help bring you back down to earth and or help build you back up when you're needing those moments of hearing that I can still do this.
Yeah, it's all about the people you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
And it's funny because we're kind of talking about something that you need thick skin for, but then again, we're actors.
And the most emotional beings.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, we start every episode with the ground up 3. So I want to know 3 questions. The first one is, where are you from?
Oh, that's such a fun question because I have like I'll give you like the quick, fast, long version.
Okay.
Born in Portland, moved to Chicago. Brother was born in Chicago, moved to Singapore, hopped around there for a bit. And then when SARS hit in Singapore, we moved back to the States, moved to New Jersey, and then back to Chicago. And that's kind of where I went to middle school, high school.
All of that before middle school.
I know.
Wow. Portland, Oregon?
Portland, Oregon, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
My boyfriend's from Portland, Maine, so that's very small. I was gonna be
And
like,
also
really?
completely opposite sides of the US.
Exactly.
There we go.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah,
I'm from
it's fun.
freaking Orange County.
Hey, girl.
That's it.
Sunshine.
Forever.
There we go.
Yeah, that's really, wow, Singapore, why?
My dad worked in commercial real estate, so his properties, his company was based in Singapore, and then their properties were scattered throughout Southeast Asia.
Okay. What was your first paid job?
A Build-A-Bear workshop commercial. Oh, actually babysitting. But Build-A-Bear workshops more related to what we're talking about.
Yeah, but I usually ask like paid, and people are like, oh, I worked at Target or whatever.
Yes.
But okay, so babysitting.
Babysitting was definitely the first thing. And then also I would never not include lemonade stands. I took them very seriously with the signs.
Everything.
And,
Screaming.
Yes. You have to. Oh, and then I have to say, this was another fun one. For the 4th of July, we used to go to in Delaware, Bethany Beach, Delaware. We would spend the 4th there. And friends of ours had a place that was right off the beach. And we used to rent out parking for the 4th so that people could watch fireworks. And made bank of like upwards like $100 for a parking spot.
Little entrepreneur.
That one, I was more of the runner, but I did get paid for it.
Collecting the money from the people. You're like, that's $100. They're like handing little 7-year-old.
It was a really good business.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
What was your first dream job?
Ooh. Oh God, that's okay. My first dream job. Well, I'm gonna give a 2-part answer. My first dream job really was, I think, to be on Broadway.
Oh, okay.
And I did that, and that felt like the coolest thing in the world to me. And that only happened about 2.5 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I think when I first started acting, I saw like I wanted to be an astronaut, I wanted to be Indiana Jones, or I wanted to be a spy. Then I saw acting and realized I could be all 3. So those are the 3 that have yet to happen. So
really,
yeah,
role-wise.
But I wanted to be them in real life, and then I realized that Indiana Jones job maybe wasn't what I actually wanted to do. I wanted to do his version.
Right.
So
which isn't
made
realistic.
for the movies.
Right. And a spy might take a little bit of like.
I would still totally be a spy.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what goes into it, but the movies make it look real fun.
I feel like my dream job as well in acting, because not in real life, but would be to be like saving kidnapped kids. So
that's so
like
sweet.
Taken, kind of like Taken. But
yes.
she
He's
is
a badass, and it's his daughter.
Yeah, so special skills, like super 007 too, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, spies are saving the world.
Yeah. But then I was watching Presumed Innocent. Have you seen it?
I'm obsessed with it. I just caught up. The new episode.
Me too.
Comes out tonight, I think, right?
Oh no. So it's Wednesdays. It promotes it, but it comes out Tuesdays.
That's why I saw the next episode already. I was like, wow, maybe I missed 2 weeks, but I'm all caught up.
Okay, so you're all caught up.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so freaking good. So I was thinking,
you want to be a lawyer?
Yeah. Woo, crazy.
No, but I mean, like, you watch Suits and you're like, yeah, I can totally do that. You know, for sure.
So good. I auditioned for Suits LA and I was like distraught when I didn't even get
I know.
anything.
It's like you send out a tape these days and it goes out into the abyss and you're like, well, there goes another one.
There goes another one, literally. Okay, so speaking of being a child and growing up, what were you like as a kid? Were you like rambunctious or to yourself?
You know, I think the only reason that I was able to become an actor is because I obnoxiously chatted away to everybody. Like, I think I loved holding court. Like, I loved chatting. I loved talking, especially when I was a younger kid. I was like 9 or 10 getting my hair cut with my mom at some salon in Chicago. And I was just chatting away to everyone in the salon. And someone approached my mom and asked if I would take a meeting with their talent agency. So that's how I fell into acting. My first day on a show, I was working on a show called Prison Break that shot in Chicago and Joliet.
Of course.
And my first day on set was in a max facility prison that was no longer in use. It was the coolest thing in the world. And after that, I was like, this is it. This is all I was supposed to do.
Really?
This is what I want.
You knew how cool that was at 10.
Oh my God.
Were
anyone would have.
Like a speaking, like
yes,
big role?
I had like 2 episodes maybe in the first season, and I think 3 or 4 in the second season, or maybe even 1 in the first season. But it was so much fun. And to get to film in that location, I think I was just like, this is so cool.
Yeah, in awe.
Yeah. And then ironically, when I was in like middle school, high school, I think a lot of people knew that I acted, and I think I was so scared of people not liking me, and I think I was a lot more quiet. Like I had a lot of really good friends, but I think I felt a lot more anxious and nervous, especially through high school, because I entered my freshman year of high school after filming a big Disney movie. And so I was like known as the girl who acted.
Yeah.
And
didn't they all must have watched it because it's Disney and you're a freshman?
Yeah. And I mean, I can't assume who watched it and who didn't. I know a lot of our friends did. And my mom had like a big watch party. She was so proud. It was really cool.
I bet. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And it was such a sweet movie, right? You're not doing anything provocative. It's like a Disney, So it's like, I remember my grandma, she watches, she has since passed, but she would watch everything that I did. And like Raising Kanan was like, I mean, I'm nude.
Oh
There's
my
like
God.
killing, drugs, everything.
Yes.
Even in Tell Me Lies, I wasn't nude in season 1, but the whole season is
You're watching it.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, she's like, who's this guy? Like, he's such a, she calls me, this guy's such a perv. And I'm like, Grandma,
don't watch that one.
Don't watch that one. / don't call Steven a perv. But he is.
No, it's so funny. I remember doing a show called Tell Me a Story, and they had they aired the first 2 episodes and did a premiere for it. My parents came into town. I'm sitting between my dad and my boyfriend, my now fiance, and there's a whole sex scene on screen, and I'm like, oh my God, this is mortifying. And I'm like, can't look at my dad. Definitely can't look at him. This is so bad. And so that was like, it's traumatizing.
I feel like people are actually so curious about this, and I have yet to talk about it on the pod, which is how does your family or your boyfriend deal with you doing intimate scenes? But let's talk about your boyfriend first, your fiance. So he's an actor, so I'm sure he understands. But let's hear, how does he, if you don't mind?
No. I think it makes sense that this is something people are curious about because it's such a bizarre thing to anyone who's not in our industry. He's fantastic, and I think a big part of it is probably because he's an actor too. For anyone who doesn't know this or hasn't heard it, filming a sex scene is not sexy. It's just not. It looks great, hopefully, because it's been coordinated and all these other things, and but it's been rehearsed, but those moments are contrived so they don't feel like that when you're watching it. And then the second that cut's called, there's someone walking in with a robe, and it's just like they're not fun. They're not like a sexy fun thing to be shooting. So I think it's when you're watching it that can feel, because it's cut and made to look
and
beautiful.
Music and
and you're supposed to see the chemistry between those characters. I think there's a lot of people that I know who choose not to watch those scenes. Totally get that. I think Colin, I'm curious how he. I mean, I think they're uncomfortable to watch. I can understand that. I have a weird thing where I feel very much like I'm watching the character version of him. Yeah, I kind of like, I'm like, it doesn't really bug me. I did an acting class with him, and he was like full on like hot and heavy with a girl in front of me while we're doing this, this course together.
Yeah.
And I was so in it, and I'm just like, I rose my hand after, and I was just like, I'm just happy I get to take him home tonight. So you kind of,
see, that's true.
It's different for everybody.
It is different for everybody.
Yeah.
And my boyfriend is not an actor, but he's in the industry.
Okay, so he kind of gets it.
He kind of gets it, but it's really difficult for him.
Yeah, and you know, honestly, I think it's like you need to be able to talk about it. Because I think that's one of the things that might hold it up the most for couples is if you're not able to talk about it, that makes people feel shamed for feeling what they're feeling.
Exactly.
And you need to be able to talk about it.
And if one person's in the industry and the other isn't, or specifically an actor, you have to understand where they're coming from.
Yes.
Like, and I didn't for a long time. I was like, well, this is my job, and you knew I was an actor, and you decided to date me, and da-da-da. Because for me, just like what you just said, it's so contrived. Like, it is almost like a dance routine that we learned before. Now there's these intimacy meetings days prior with the director, with you, the other actor, the intimacy coordinator. You're going over it, everything. So it's already feels so rehearsed in my head, and it's just not to say it's not real, right?
Because it looks real. Like that's the thing is like it's not, I feel like it's easier for people the day of something shooting. It's harder actually physically watching it. And I think that's because they're witnessing their person with another. Yeah. And that's hard. I get why that is hard for people.
And if you're watching the episode, let's say, and obviously they're hooking up for a reason, so you kind of know the story between them, and everything adds to this scene becoming, between lighting, sound, everything becoming this sexy moment.
Yeah.
And so
the buildup.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we talked, I don't know if we were offline when we talked about this, but having like stints off of work. And for you, I know that you've been working since you were 10, and you've done the originals, you did Based on a True Story.
Tell Me a Story.
Tell Me a Story.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Tell Me a Story, and Famous in Love.
Famous in Love.
You did one episode of All American, which I want to hear about, because by then you were already a series regular on like 2 other things.
And that's why it cut short, which was unfortunate because I loved the show, but I booked something else, and as one of the leads, that was Tell Me a Story, and so I couldn't film anymore.
I got you. Okay, so but let's go back to the originals. So can I hear? So that was one of your first big things that you booked, right?
Yeah, I booked that right after I graduated high school. We shot the pilot this summer after I graduated, and then I moved straight out to Atlanta.
Okay.
So that was so much fun. My college experience was essentially on set with everybody.
Wow.
It was really cool.
And so what was the audition story?
Lots of auditions, and it was a big, because it's such a big cast. The originals has vampires, werewolves, witches, all located in New Orleans, and I'd say like the bigger part, there was like a couple rounds of initial auditions of probably 2 or 3, and then we had a big chemistry read where they were mix matching some of our characters, and I remember the Charles Michael Davis, who played Marcel. He was the character that I got to match with a couple times, that I think we had like an easy banter, which was so much fun. But it was really cool, and it's fun to look back on and remember, there were so many really talented actors auditioning for the roles, but it was mostly 2 of us per character at that point.
Okay.
And booking it was just like, I felt like I knew Davina right away. That was, I played a witch in New Orleans.
Okay.
And she was so much fun. My family, my mom's side's from New Orleans, so I think there's a part of me that felt like I get an energy there that just made sense for me too. Getting to shoot in New Orleans was a dream. So we got to shoot in the French Quarter.
Both Atlanta and New Orleans?
Yes. Oh, sorry. So the first season we shot mostly in Atlanta, but we did pickup shots in New Orleans.
For like the big monuments or something?
Yeah, for kind of like the big overhead shots. And then there were a couple times throughout the rest of the seasons where they would do a couple shots that would air later in the season there too. But for the most part, we shot in Atlanta. They built a whole French Quarter on our stages, which was really cool.
And you were in Vampire Diaries for a couple episodes? Or
no, Vampire Diaries was the the originals. Well, the originals is kind of like, because vampires are so old in our world. Yeah. The original vampires created some of the Vampire Diaries characters, and so when the original vampires came on to Vampire Diaries, they then gave them a spinoff. So we're technically...
Because I remember Klaus. I watched Vampire Diaries.
Yes. Okay, so you get it.
Yes. Oh my God.
So Klaus came, and so we basically started telling like his story in present day that technically would have been at the same time of Vampire Diaries.
He's amazing.
He's fantastic. All the actors on that show were fantastic. It was amazing to get to shoot with them and learn from them.
Did you know how big it was going to be because of Vampire Diaries? Or are you the type that's just like, I'm going to film the pilot and let's see what happens next?
The pilot it was straight to series. Okay. So I did know that Julie's like a powerhouse.
Yeah.
Kevin Williamson I've worked with on 2 shows now. He's like a dream. I mean, honestly, I think everything they touch is gold.
Yeah.
So honestly, and I don't think I was old enough at the time to really understand that at that time, but the originals was an immediate hit because of the Vampire Diaries, I think for sure.
Yeah.
But we had like a completely different story, which made it a lot of fun to film.
So you test, you're swapping, chemistry reads and stuff, and so now it's you and one. Are they like your agents are like, hey, okay, it's you and one other girl, or you just did you?
So I forgot this part. I was actually 17 when I auditioned. So my mom is the one getting all the calls, and she's relaying the information to me. My managers I've been with now since I was 10 too, so I know them very, very well.
Wilbur Rockland?
Well, so Margot, my manager, was at other places first.
I got
she is at Luber though now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're fantastic, by the way.
Yeah.
Who are you with?
Yeah, I'm with Greg.
You're with Greg. Oh,
Yeah.
so fun. I think I did see this actually.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
They're amazing. Like I feel so grateful.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Their whole team's really great
I know.
too.
Powerhouse to have behind you like that
Yes.
is like
and good connections, and they just have such good relationships too. Which
totally.
Is so
I feel like their superpower is when it gets to you and one other person or 2 other people, they're like picking up the phones.
Yeah.
They're like, who do we know? Who can we call?
That's
How can
what you
we
want.
push this?
That's what
you
you
have to have. These days,
Yeah.
it's like, holy shit, with all of these less roles and more people wanting to book them.
And I'm curious to hear your perspective on that too.
Yeah. I think, okay, well, first of all, as far as like booking roles, right? This mysterious thing to people who don't really understand it. My biggest thing that I tell people is like, you have to be good with your team. You have to nurture your relationship with your people and make sure that they are doing what we're talking about. Picking up the phone, pitching you. This is the beginning stages, but like making sure once you have that, then you're in good hands, and then you just put out the best work that you can. But I mean, all we can do as actors is put out a really great tape and then
hope that we're receiving the opportunity to put something on tape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
To your point with what you were saying with communicating with your team, I have a lot of friends who are not happy with their team, for example. I think one of the biggest skills that you can not only learn as an actor, but just learn in life, in any environment that you're working in, you need to be able to communicate with your team. So whether it's like a personal relationship, whether it's a friendship, whether it is a working relationship, no one can read your mind. So when you're unhappy with something, you need to be able to use your words and talk about it. I think a lot of actors, something that I'm constantly surrounded by when I'm with other people on set is they're sharing like what their team is doing or not doing and why do you think this is happening. And it's like, I think at the end of the day, you need to just talk to them and say, if there's something you're missing, you need to be able to say, hey, I need you to show up more, or I need us to grab dinner so that we can have like a quick check-in. You need to be able to
100%.
make the effort to just say, hey, can we talk?
It's the only thing actors can do for themselves. We have no control over anything.
Yeah.
So the only thing we have control over, and I'm not saying to be annoying and grasp tightly and be controlling, but you need to create as many opportunities for yourself as you can. And I think that is exactly what you're saying. Grabbing dinner, coffee, showing your face. I always find that whenever I grab coffee with my manager or something, I get an audition the next day. And I know he's
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I know that I'm getting everything that I'm right for at this time, but still, energy. I'm there. He's like, oh wow, she looked like, he always tells me, he's like, you get younger and younger every time I see you, or whatever. And so he might not see me for a while and be like, okay, Natalee's 29. This is too young, whatever. And then he sees me and he's like, wait, no, like this character's 23, like that's fine.
And I also have such an interesting dynamic with that too, because like age range is it comes into play so much for our auditions, right? And it's like, what is your physical range that you are currently at, right? It's like we're 29, so we're playing the early 30s, late 20s. But then there's also like we look slightly younger, or maybe we look too mature, or maybe we play too like more mature. Our team is able to help push like those auditions through in a different way when they really know us. And
exactly,
like I think that's why one of those reasons those are so important. Like casting directors will remember you from whatever the last thing that you did was, or you know, like what if your agent's willing to like put you forward and say, hey, I think you should look at this person again. I think they've matured since you last saw them and would be worth a read.
Exactly.
Those relationships are so important. They always will be.
Yep. And they have to understand your essence and what you want to be going out for. Something I want to touch on that you said earlier, which was communicate your needs.
Yeah.
So like, let's say you want to be doing comedy and you never told that to your team, and you're like getting annoyed every time you get an audition, you know, it's like, oh, it's this procedural or whatever. And it's like, did you ever tell your team like, hey, by the way, I'm at Groundlings and I'm actually really funny and I want to be going out for this, you know?
You have to advocate for yourself for sure. And it's hard. I think it's hard to do that sometimes too, because so much of our work is showing what we can do. And unless you're given the opportunity, you don't really have the opportunity to showcase that. And then sometimes you'll get, you know, a comedy piece, but you're completely wrong for it. And they're only going to see that as comedy is not the right option. So it's like continuing to reinforce like, hey, would love another shot at something. You know, it's you need to be your biggest cheerleader. You really do.
All right, guys, let's take a quick break from the show to talk about our sponsor, Mastermind Media. I've been shooting with Mastermind for a few years now, and I can truly say that they have covered all of my needs within the digital space. They create logos for me, graphic designs for my journal magic. Obviously, they produce the podcast, and it looks amazing. So I love working with them, and they're offering all of my listeners 15% off. So just shoot them an email and tell them that I sent you, and you'll get the discount. All of their information can be found in the show notes below. All right, guys, back to the show. I feel like this is a good segue into networking. So simply put, do you think it's important as an actor to network?
Now more than ever.
Really? Okay.
I will say this because I think a big part of me earlier on in my career was always I was so much more I guess I was just more nervous in thinking people only, or in thinking that other people would think I'm only trying to use them, because that was so much of what I would hear. Like that was so much of what I would hear about what networking was like in our industry.
Same.
And so many people.
And as a young woman too. And well,
no, just like I think I was so overly exposed to hearing that the last thing I wanted was for anyone to not think that I was authentic, because I think I'm a very authentic person and I'm very real. And, you know, if I'm not clicking with you, I'm kind of don't really want to waste my time, but also don't want anyone else to feel that they need to. So I think for me, I've had such an interesting dynamic with it, because I've always just tried to not steer things and like pushing toward my career, because I think that's just not in my personality. I think I want my work to speak for itself, but I also continue to recognize too that I think some opportunities only come because people know you and have seen you enough to be able to like try to give you an opportunity. Yeah. I don't really know how it works, to be honest with you. Yeah. I think it continues to confuse me, and I think that's probably apparent since I keep rambling.
No, I think, but this is how it works in all of our heads. Like I have mentored few actors, and the number one thing is like, should I be networking? Should I be networking? Should I be networking? And so I got fascinated.
And what is networking?
What is it? So here's my opinion. My opinion is you're at different stages of your career, of your life, right? Right now, I feel like I'm in a stage where networking could maybe be beneficial at this point, right? Where I'm like, okay, maybe if I start meeting with people and they're like, or like I do projects and I stay in touch with them.
I think that's good for anybody.
Yes.
And that's just like going to school with somebody and being like, hey, we should keep in touch and talking about them later. Yeah.
Exactly. But if you're starting out as an actor, do I think that by you going out to events or parties or even workshops or acting classes and thinking that you're going to book a speaking TV or film role, I don't think that that's
no, and I don't classify any of that as networking anyway. But I think that is actually what most people would classify as networking. So that makes sense. So if that's the case, then I go the opposite direction because I don't think anything I've booked has been through that opportunity.
That's the thing. And I ask every guest because I'm curious. And they've all said very naturally and kindly, like, oh, no, I haven't really, booked anything off of networking. So it's interesting. There's those people in LA who, like, my best friend and I have a girl that we know who knows everyone. Like, we don't know how. Literally, but she just knows everyone. But she's never, like, done anything. She's friends with everyone and she's a connector, which is super cool. Yeah. But she's not an actor or a writer or a director. She kind of wants to do all those things. So it just makes me think, like, what's the goal here? My goal is to, book roles on television and film. It always has been since I started pursuing this. And so I think I found out pretty early on that, like, number one, men want to take advantage of me. So why would I try to network or take a meeting with...
Why would I put myself in that situation?
Yeah, at 5 p.m. at dinner to put me in your movie. Like, you're not going to.
No.
And I think it's hard to...
I'm glad you talk about this because it's something that actually I haven't really discussed, which is probably why I took it the opposite direction. I'm currently writing a script with a friend of mine who's a writer, and the people that we're making a short that we're hoping to sell, and the people that he wants to help produce are people that he's worked with in the past. So I think in my mind, I'm like, well, that's us using our network of what we currently 100%. Know. That being said, that's never how I've booked something. Yeah. Maybe that's how some, like, our friends are, you're friends with other actors and stuff too, and we're trying to make things. And that's where I can see utilizing your network.
100%.
That being said, it's not, I think, the way to book a job.
Yes.
I think that's an organic connection, isn't it?
Yeah. I agree completely. If you're writing or you own a production company or you're trying to direct or AD or anything like that, you have to meet people, and that's how you get hired on jobs. You're like, hey, I'm a first AD. If you ever need someone, like, bring me up with you or whatever.
Yeah, but that's just continuing to keep those connections and those foundational relationships that you've already started to foster.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm glad we talked about this.
Me too.
Okay, so you do the originals. Now you're getting a little older. You're 20, 21, 22. When did you finish that, and what was next? And how did you book that next thing?
More auditioning, really. I mean, I'm trying to think of how old I was. I don't quite remember, but
You did the originals for how many seasons?
I did 3 full seasons, and then I went back for some episodes for the 4th and 5th.
Okay.
But the other shows and movies that I did after, like, it's continually more auditioning. So I think, like, my question would be, if I'm curious what your response is really too, is like, I'm getting my auditions through my team.
Yeah.
The question I get a lot through other friends of mine who are wanting to act, or younger students who are trying to come up in the business or figure it out, is like, where do you start if you're not already someone who's repped by somebody? Also, friends of ours who have been dropped by agents and needing to, like, start that whole process all over again. That's a hard experience to kind of continually navigate. And it's not something that's like, there's not a really straight-laced way of figuring that out. I think a lot of it is needing to ask people what they did, and then also recognize that probably will not be your path. And, like, I guess, like, if for a young person who's never started in the industry, where would you say to start?
Yeah. So I only pull from my experience, but my experience was pretty ground up, down and dirty, moved here, didn't have
Very fitting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always have to sprinkle it in somewhere. Moved.
She's really charming, guys.
Yeah. Welcome. Okay, so I moved from Orange County. No financial help from family, and also no mentors. Like, they were supportive, which I was grateful for, because some parents would be like, nope, gotta go to college. They supported it, but they were not in the industry remotely. So I was really on my own. And I feel like then when I started pursuing in 2015 to now, the only way to get auditions for SAG, television, and film is through representatives.
Yeah.
Because
agreed.
I submitted myself on LA Casting when I was first starting out, and I booked some really fun, my first job I think was like a non-union Starbucks commercial.
Oh, cool.
That was like, didn't air, but it was on web or whatever.
Good for you. You took initiative though.
Yeah.
From an early age.
Yeah. I was like driving up all the way from Orange County for like, I remember sitting in the waiting room at some auditions and, you know, you're kind of chatting with people, not theatrical, it's just commercial. And these were for like $1,500 buyouts, you know, like, and they're like, you know, I'm chatting. Oh yeah, I just drove up from, and they're like, you drove up for this? And I'm like,
the judgment.
Yeah. Literally,
What?
they're just like, you drove from, because you know, even here, it's like you drove from the West Side, like to come.
I
here.
know. I hear it all the time now.
And so now looking back, I'm like, damn, I did drive every time I would get an audition through LA Casting because I would submit myself. I would be stoked and I would drive up and eventually booked my first national, which was Farmers Insurance, and that's how I got into SAG.
You go, girl. That's awesome.
Commercials.
Oh, and that's such a weird thing too. Is you need to book something in order to get you SAG to get you what's it called?
SAG eligible.
Thank you.
Yeah.
To make you SAG eligible.
Which is also so confusing and hard. Yeah. So one way to do it is to get 3 vouchers through being background.
I don't know.
I think, okay, so you can get 3 vouchers, SAG vouchers, by being a background in SAG things.
Multiple different projects, though. Yeah, it can't be the same one.
Yes.
Got it.
And then, or you can book a SAG project. So my advice to someone is I would be like, especially if you're needing money, I would be like, get a commercial agent because anyone in the entire 8 billion people world can be in commercials.
Yeah.
I know this because my boyfriend owns a commercial production company and I get to watch 1,500 tapes for a sit and sleep commercial that he gets. And they are people with their baby in their hand. They've got, I mean, from all across.
We need everyone represented though, so it makes sense.
And it's normal people. Commercials are, you know, so.
They should be.
Yeah. So I would say do that and try to get Taft-Hartley to be into SAG, which is it means that the production pays a small fee, not for your SAG entry, but they pay a small fee to make you be able to do the SAG commercial. And then you get SAG eligible.
So that's through going through the 3 different projects, or that would count as your SAG.
Yeah,
your SAG.
So you can either get 3 vouchers by being in SAG things.
Yes.
Or you can audition for
a project that is SAG.
That is SAG, and the production company goes, "We really like this person. We're gonna Taft-Hartley them and make them SAG eligible."
Yes.
And then you have to pay $3,000, which it's like, where do you get that?
Hopefully you've done a couple of those other commercials.
Yeah. It's like you're always betting on yourself.
I know. Well, and then you can't work on things that are not SAG after the fact because you risk losing your union
Exactly.
card. Yeah.
Exactly. But another thing I tell people who say that and they want to, you know, be actors, they're like, well, there's so much non-union work, you know? And so I always go back to, what are your goals? What are your intentions? My goal was like, I mean, back then, my literal goal was Vampire Diaries. I was too, I wasn't pursuing it yet when the show was actually on, but just mentally, I was like,
that type of world, that type of thing, totally.
And I was like, nothing non-union is gonna get me there. And so I feel like making decisions like that, when you know your goals, you can easily just be like, okay, my goal is to figure out how to become SAG, you know, because that's the only way you could be on.
Well, a lot of people don't even know that that's a requirement for so much of our industry is to have, and like the union is meant to protect us. It's not meant to kind of to create barriers in your way of becoming an actor. It's meant to protect you when you're on that set and to enforce laws to be able to help you. So it's worth it's worth asking the question, like, what are your goals? And then before fully saying, if your goals are just to act and not be a part of SAG, maybe it's still worth looking into kind of what SAG is offering in terms of those protections and legalities, and just being clear on the differences.
Yeah, it's tough.
It is.
Blindly being like, okay, I want to do this thing, and that's why people, the number one thing is like the word they use is overwhelm. I'm just overwhelmed. But I even have people who've been pursuing it for a decade that'll DM me and be like, hey, like, this is weird because like I'm not new, but what the hell?
Yeah.
I'm not booking. And so I just go back to like, we've kind of been bouncing around, but I think one really important thing we both agree on is finding your team.
Yeah.
To get you auditions.
Something that I've shared with some students who have been looking to get into acting, anyone can do it from any city that they're in terms of just you go online. It's a simple search looking for casting agencies and representation for actors. Look for the one closest to you, email them, and literally ask, hi, I am looking to pursue this and would love to know what you're looking for. Please send me a breakdown as to, do you need to see like an audition tape? Do you need to see some headshots? Do you need to see my previous work or where I may have been studying? So just kind of ask the question.
Yep.
It's never going to do you harm to just kind of ask, hey, what are you looking for? Or is there an open call that you guys may be hosting? Or maybe there's an agent that's coming to speak at something in the near future that you could let me in on.
What they're going to respond with.
Totally.
Or not respond. And guess what? Get used to it.
That's the majority of the industry
exactly.
too. But it's also, that's where you also don't stop. If you're passionate about this, if this is something for you, one no or non-response shouldn't shoot you down. I think give yourself options, reach out to multiple.
Yep.
I
think for the person who has done all of that, they are repped, but they've been with their reps for 9 months and haven't spoken to them.
They need to pick up the phone and say, hey, let's have a check-in.
Yep. And if they are weird about that for any reason at all, then you need to let them go and do yourself a service by diving into that fear of now being not repped and going to find other ones who are going to be your number one advocate.
Yeah, you've created such a beautiful energy about seeking, getting really clear on what you're missing or what you're wanting, and taking the action toward making that happen. And I think there's so much fear in our industry of like the things that are uncertain, which is the majority of what we do. But that fear can be paralyzing sometimes. And I think almost the bravest step and the thing to be most proud of is when you make that first step toward like making momentum toward what it is that you want, whether that's cutting someone from your team who's just not making the effort, or whether it's finally picking up the phone and calling the agency for the first time saying, hey, I'm wanting to try this. What do I need to do? Or reaching out to a friend to ask, what are your thoughts on where I should start? I'm trying to figure this out. Or, hey, can you tape me for something? It's that moment of just kind of making a decision to take action for yourself can be really empowering.
I think that's so beautiful. That's so true. Paralyzation? Is that a word?
Yeah, I think so.
Paralyzation is, no, but analysis paralysis. People,
Yes.
This is what, and me too, sometimes I'm so overwhelmed, I have so much to do, and I'm like, and I just sit there and I'm like, should I work on my podcast, Instagram? Should I read this audition or do nothing? I'm going to choose nothing. It's like, it's very human. But if you can just inch toward that one thing, or I love what you said, pick up the phone and call a friend and be like, I'm stuck.
Talk to me.
Yes, talk to me. What do I do next? And they're going to be like, okay, set a 20-minute timer and send that email you've been needing to send.
Well, this is if you have a friend like you and I were calling and being like, I don't know what to do. And you'd be like, okay, let's figure this out. But if you don't have that resource, definitely I think tune into everything you're doing because it's fantastic. How did you even start magic?
I was in Vancouver shooting Siren, my first show ever. I booked my first show at 23, so like way later in 2018.
Not that much later.
Yeah, I guess.
think that's awesome.
But so I was there and I was recurring. So I was alone so much, and I would be up there like with so much time off,
Yeah.
and then fly home. And I got to quit my restaurant job, which was amazing because I was doing commercials as well.
Amazing,
So like
yeah.
that was supplementing some income. So I wasn't like working a 9 to 5. So I had so much time off, and I was after I wrapped Siren, it was a lull of like
What do I do?
a year of auditioning back again to try to book something and fill my time. And I was, essentially probably just going through it of like just the days, no structure at all. Like waking up and being like, well, I have the whole day to do something. I don't know what. So I started like listening to podcasts and reading books. And I was obsessed with like high performers and their habits. And everyone had the same habit, which was a morning routine.
Yeah.
And I was like, fascinating. So I tried a bunch of different morning routines, and like none of them really worked for me. They're either too long or too short.
Sure.
And so after hearing about the science of meditation and affirmations and gratitude, I was in my apartment and I was writing all these words down. I lived alone and I was like, I called Levin, our mutual friend, how we met.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, I have this great idea. It's a morning routine called Maggie. And I think Maggie. I was like, Magi. I'm like, listen to this: meditation, affirmations, gratitude, intentions. It's genius. Like I was like, and I remember thinking,
it's so great.
It's so great. And then she was like, why don't you call it magic, like coffee at the end, because you're obsessed with coffee.
Oh my God. See,
Yeah.
that's where having a friend who knows you.
Exactly.
Nailed it.
And then anyway, so that's how it came about. And then I started posting about it and people started doing it. And I was like, ooh, I better like trademark this. Because I'm kind of entrepreneurial.
Yeah, I can tell that about you for sure.
It was like, I was like, I think I have something here. So yeah.
That is so cool. So, but it took you kind of reaching a low point for you to be able to be like, this is not how I want to feel.
Yeah.
How do I pull myself out of it? But that's like you took so much action for yourself and just recognizing that you weren't feeling good, and then sought out other people who inspired you. I think people can get a little like crushed sometimes, like watching other people who are like higher performers. They'll just compare themselves versus acknowledging that you're seeing this person because they can really give, like, what can you take from what they're putting out here that can inspire you? Like some people take inspiration as comparison in a way where they just kind of shame themselves.
Yep.
I don't know if I think that's coming through clearly, but it's
now more than ever.
I think it's important that you kind of made a pivot and you went the opposite direction. You were like, I'm going to try some of these things that these people are doing who I really admire.
Yeah.
They didn't work for you, but you didn't get discouraged and you didn't say, you didn't let that kind of hurt you. You let it build you up.
Or think of like, oh, there's so many journals out there. There's so many morning routines. Why start this, you know?
Ultimately, it has to be what works for you.
Yeah.
And the fact that you could try all those and none of them did, like that speaks, I think, to so many people.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been, and also because, and I want to ask you this, because of how much downtime I've had over the last 5 years. Like I said, I quit my restaurant job at 23. And so I've been working for 6 years now, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah. And between that, I've had a lot of downtime, you know, like not working, where I haven't had to go get another job necessarily, but still a lot of, so I've been able to fill it with things like magic or the podcast.
Yeah.
So how do you fill your time if you have downtime?
I can totally relate because I've definitely had the downtime. I've had the lulls of it not feeling good too. And it typically kind of drives me to action. Like I'll kind of go into a dip of like, God, this doesn't feel good. I'm vibrating very low. But so I get antsy to kind of like, how do I pull myself out of this? And I'm very much very similar. I listen to people who inspire me. I read a ton. I love immersing myself in other worlds. I think that's something I've done since I was really young and probably where a lot of my imagination comes from. I'm very connected to that part of me. And I'm also like, I chase newness a lot. And it's like, I get like a wanderlust part of me. I think moving a lot probably helped put that in. But my parents have always like traveled with us and we never went to the same place twice really. So I think for me, when I have downtime, I'm very fortunate to be in the position to travel. I travel a lot.
Okay.
I love that now I can audition even from traveling, which I think that's been great. But when I'm home, I think a lot of me likes trying new things. I love to cook. I love exploring the farmers markets that are nearby us because I love making things that are really fresh. I love painting. I'm not good at it yet, but it's something that I think I'm very creative and I need to utilize that, whether that's cooking or dancing or something. I think I need to kind of scratch the itch there.
Yeah. It sounds like these are all things too that get you out of your head and into your hands, your body, cooking, whatever that is. And I feel like a lot of us, including myself, live in our heads. So
as an actor, I think because of what you have been sharing, when you have that downtime, it's hard. It's hard to like sometimes pull yourself out of it. And what I now have, because of all those moments that haven't felt good, I have tools that have worked for me. So it's like you have to experience the moments that you feel really low and really shitty in order to recognize like, oh, I remember I've pulled myself out of feeling this way before. Now it's positive reinforcement. I know I can do this again. Maybe the same thing doesn't work the second time, but at least you have like the positive memory of getting yourself out of it or knowing that it will pass and trusting that.
And also allowing yourself to feel it when you are feeling it, which I'm
Yes.
bad at. I'm like, get me out of this
We all are.
feeling. I'm like, I hate it.
Because you don't want to sit in it. Like no one likes feeling those negative things, but acknowledging that you're not alone feeling it and it will pass if you allow yourself to just kind of be kind to yourself rather than being like, why am I not out of this yet? I think we all fall into that circle. But my biggest thing is like when you're feeling that way, call somebody. It's okay to not experience it by yourself.
Yes.
And I think that's a hard thing. I have a hard time doing that, but
Right, calling someone. And it's so, whenever you get off the phone with a friend, it's just 20 minutes or whatever. And you're just like, oh my God, why don't I do this all the time? Because you're like laughing or you hear their voice and they're like a really good friend of yours and you're like, ooh, this made me. But we're so quote unquote busy in our adult lives that we don't do that as much. And so I've been trying to take advantage of that more, bother my friends and like.
Yeah. I think we have to. And like, I don't know. I also really love being outside. I love going for a walk, even like it doesn't have to be a crazy exercise, but like going for a walk, going and sitting at the beach and reading. I love living on the west side because I feel I can escape all the time. So that feels great.
Nature walks. Don't underestimate them.
Never.
Seriously, every time I'm like, why don't I do this every single day? Because you're moving your body, getting serotonin, dopamine.
Fresh air.
Yeah, all the above.
And you can talk with a friend at the same time.
Exactly. Knock it all out. Or listen to a podcast.
Or that, yeah.
Okay, I definitely still want to talk about, so I was curious personally as another actor who is working, are you at the point, do you get offers?
I have, I think the industry's changed so much that I think it depends on where you're at. If you're on, like a constant booking spree, then you might get some offers.
The fire is there.
I've had offers in the past. I've had some, but they're not, just because you're offered something, it doesn't mean that it's always the right fit for you and where you are in your life. And I don't necessarily I think if I'm right for the part, if I have to read for it, I'm happy to prove that.
I'm the same way. I'm the same way. I'm like, are you sure you, especially, I feel like all actors are like imposters and like, are you sure you want me? Let me show you like everything I have. So when you auditioned for, what was your Famous in Love audition story? Do you remember? Or what's like an iconic?
I was shooting something else while I was taping it, and I remember I had to tape it again, and then they asked if I would get highlights, and I was like, yeah, I could get highlights. I haven't really thought about that, but and I ended up getting some. I got highlights, I think, a couple times, but I love highlights.
Funny.
Highlights are fun. I know, but the character was very much like a Malibu girl who's been she's been hanging out in the sunshine.
Been hanging out. So do you get excited every time you get pinned and callbacks and
yes, I get excited just getting a callback, like
Me
just
too.
getting just getting, hey, the director wants to just talk to you. Maybe they're not ready for you to do a second round or not, but they want to talk to you again. I think it's very validating, obviously, but honestly, in the world right now where you're sending a lot of tapes out and they may not be watched, it's really nice to just, even if it goes no further, getting like the nice email back of like, hey, that was a great tape, she's not right for this, but she killed it. Like that feels amazing.
Totally. I taped something last week, it was Zoom.
Okay.
So
those are hard. Sometimes it's easy to do them, and then sometimes they book up really fast. Like a Zoom audition.
Yeah, that my agent was like, hurry, can you do 10:30? Like I'm trying to get, and I'm like, what's happening? Yeah, I'm getting this slot. I'm still getting used to the Zoom auditioning.
But even taping, like I had to ask like if we what was available time wise for this because I had to go tape. So it's like you can't. It's hard. Some people are really good actually taping by themselves. They pre-record their lines.
Oh yeah, no.
I can't do that.
Me either.
Because I'll say something at a different timing and I need to just hope that someone's going to be able to bounce off of it,
Same.
So I love that interaction too.
I also can't do phone call tapes. Can
they're
you?
hard.
Yeah.
I can't do them.
I have friends that are like, hey, can you hop on a call and tape with me? And I'm like, of course.
You're amazing.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
I can't do that. And I'm really lucky. My boyfriend totally tapes with me all the time, which honestly, I know that that's not a normal thing to live with someone.
No, that's such a luxury to get to do that.
Yeah.
When Colin and I are both home, we'll tape together, but we have to both be home.
Right. Which is, yeah.
Sometimes we'll both have an audition. We don't have the time to give because sometimes, like, depending on how long they are or how intense they are. There was a time where we both had an audition due that week. It was for the same project, and we just physically didn't have the time to be able to tape one another because we want to be able to take and give each other the accurate time and you need attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A couple hours, not just like, okay, I have 30 minutes here to like, even if it could be done in 30 minutes, I don't want to know that I only have 30 minutes because that would stress me out.
Pressure time. Yeah, same here.
I did a Zoom audition for something, and then my agent calls me and she's like, and I've auditioned for this casting director multiple times and she's great. So I knew that like she knows what she wants,
Yeah.
And because we did each scene twice, and so she called me. She's like, "Oh my God, send over a slate because they can't slate you, on these Zooms." And she's like, "She absolutely loved you." And like even that, I was like, just streaming. I was like, okay, not even pinned yet. I was just sent to producers, and I was like, "Oh, this would be so fun."
But you knew it was getting passed on because sometimes you do auditions and they get sent nowhere. They're maybe only the first 3 seconds are watched and they don't even see the whole thing. It's hard. Yeah. It's really hard. How do you feel? Because I know so much of our industry now is either through the computer doing Zoom, which I'm so happy that that's an option now.
Yeah, me too.
Or it's a tape. Like, did you really connect with taping, or did you really like being in the room? Like, what were you into?
Such a good question. I book more off tapes, just statistically, like my own journey is like, I mean, I don't even know what I've booked in the room.
Yeah.
Like, cause even back then, like when I booked Power, we were auditioning in person, but it shot in New York. So I taped it.
Yeah.
What else? Siren was in the room. I don't know. I think I just book better on tapes.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of people who feel that way. Like I really enjoyed in person.
You did?
But
okay.
did you, so like now that you've like doing like a Zoom audition, do you prefer that over taping now?
So I just recently started doing Zoom ones like way more frequently where they're like, okay, we have a Zoom appointment. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay. So I have been liking them because the casting director can give me a note and have me tape it again, which I appreciate.
That's
because
what I miss too.
I'm like, oh, different direction, or like speed it up. Like that was my note last week. She's like, love everything. They're bantering like and I was like, amazing, thank you. Deliver the lines faster, like
easy,
right?
Can do that. Wouldn't have thought that, but yes, exactly. Now I know. No, because it's interesting because everyone can we can take in a audition entirely differently. But if we were to just get the simple direction of knowing how to say the line or like knowing kind of what the character is a little bit more in detail, because sometimes we're not given a script, right? So it's if we don't know the world as intimately as what we would be able to read in full, getting that little extra direction is wonderful. So I love that Zooming is becoming an option to not to replace being in the room, because I think there's something special about that energy that's created.
Yeah.
That's what I used to really prefer. But having the option of interaction with another person.
The Zooms.
Yeah, at first I didn't, because like I remember doing I had a chemistry read that was a comedy, and the connection was poor, and my lines were I was hearing my line back when it would get through, but it was and it takes
a chemistry
the air
read
out.
on Zoom.
Comedy,
imagine.
and you need pace with comedy, and that was really frustrating for me. I remember being genuinely agitated and saying, "Hey, the lines are coming through late," and they're like, "No, we can hear you fine." I'm like, "That's not the problem. It's just coming in. I'm hearing it delayed. I'm hearing myself back," and that was hard. But
that's so hard because you're prepping too.
Yeah,
the material.
But I think everyone's going to be limited in some capacity to something. Sometimes Zooms are not available and you have to tape, or sometimes taping's all they're going to do, or sometimes I have heard of some in-person auditions. So I think everything's different, and ultimately they're finding the person who's supposed to play the part, and that's all we can do.
Yeah. Can you believe we're testing on Zooms?
No.
They don't meet us, and they're offering thousands of dollars an episode. Just
hoping it works
hair
out.
Their chinny chin chin.
But I remember in-person things, and sometimes they the day that you're doing chemistry reads or they're doing a test and it's in person, and sometimes they still need to either fire the actor or they need to recast something because something didn't work. And like, you can't, I think these creators do a fantastic job, because like watching the shows that are in movies that are coming out, like I'm just in awe of what this world's creating. It's
casting
amazing.
is, when I watch shows too, I'm like, that's perfect. Like Presumed Innocent, the two kids.
Yeah.
I'm like, they are beautiful and like so great.
And fantastic actors.
So great. And I'm like, this is a casting director watching tons of tapes and interviewing tons of people to find these two people that just so happen to not only look like the mom and dad perfectly, but be amazing actors and fit into the world and everything.
Totally. It's weird. I can only imagine how difficult it is for casting directors at the moment, because everyone's sending in tapes left and right. So it's like, how do you view this to actually, like they have to be so clear on who that character is, who that person is. And so I can imagine that probably sometimes it is not worth anyone's time for the tape to be watched in full, because it's just that's not the person.
They have to be so decisive.
Yeah. I couldn't do it.
No, me either. I would be like, well, I really like her though. And he's great.
I know, this is why we're in the different genre.
Yeah, exactly. Did you ever go up for something that, not to this day, but that you are like, that at the moment, at the time, you were devastated that you didn't end up getting?
Yeah. I mean, most things that I think I've gone out for that I've fallen in love with.
Gotten close to, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's also like projects that have had, or like casting directors who I've made it far in their audition process and it's been a different girl. And those are always hard, but like you see yourself in that world so well that you're like, maybe it's just the next project, or like, so that's where the relationships that you build, and it's like you just have to like kind of trust the process, and it's leaning into that, and it gets hard to do when it goes longer and longer and longer of either not working or not booking or not receiving anything back, or not even receiving an audition. It's like we go through waves. I remember listening to a podcast, and I think it was Neil Patrick Harris who was interviewed, but he made this analogy of acting to waves, and like sometimes you're gonna catch a wave and you have to just keep riding it and like allow it to like no matter like how big it is, you have to just catch it and ride it and acknowledge that if you're someone who's still paddling, that just wasn't your wave to catch.
Yep.
And I know that there's, anyone who surfs, there's people who will catch a wave and try to catch at the same time, and the one person's gonna have to get knocked off. That feels like testing for a project, and one person gets it and another person doesn't.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we're going to catch our wave or we're not, but that's life. That's every industry. That's not even just acting.
Yeah. Or you're going to get swallowed up on the shore when you like get
you're going to get barreled and not in a good way. You're going to get just crushed by the waves, or you're going to ride a really good one. It's gonna be great.
I feel like that was a beautiful way to end the episode. Is there anything else that you want to talk about, or?
No, just we need another coffee date or dinner or something.
You brought so many insights to this episode. I'm so stoked. I feel like the listeners are gonna really get out their pens and papers and be taking notes. So thank you.
It was such a fun dialogue. Thank you. It was so much fun. It didn't feel like it was just an interview. It was like you have so much to share, and I think that's what makes you obviously a really good interviewer. But this is just such a fun conversation, and it's fun to have a podcast like this allows artists a space to kind of learn and hear, because everyone's got such a different story.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of acting is so mysterious in a way.
Yeah,
because we usually don't hear the ground up story, the 10 years of hard work that goes behind, booking your big thing or whatever. Unless there's Smart List. Have you listened to that podcast?
Yeah.
But those are all AAA list celebrities. And they also started, a lot of their guests talk about auditioning in the 90s. And it's so cool to hear. I love it.
It's just a different world.
It's so different.
Yeah. And how fun is it to actually talk to people who are currently still trying to build their careers?
Yes.
That's the other thing too about our what we do, is that a career is not a job. A job is that next thing that you book. Your career is the trajectory of all the jobs compiled at the end of the road for you. So we are still very much the beginning process of creating that career, building it, figuring out what that means, and none of our stories are the same. So hopefully somebody can find like little tidbits to just listen to and compare themselves and like see that it's possible.
Yeah. And I just randomly want to say, like, Danielle came from an audition today, and I just, it's such a simple statement, but it makes, I feel like people listening to this, right? They look at you and they're like, wow, Danielle, like, you're amazing. And you're this actress who's been in so many things and you're just working all the time. And, you know, and it's like, you freaking went to a friend's house to tape an audition. You're in a different outfit.
Yep.
You had to put a little bit of makeup on, change your shirt in
Natalee
the car.
had to fix me in the back. She's got a little bow that
Tuck
actually
her
looks
bra.
pretty now.
Yeah. And, you know, that's where we're at. Exactly what you're saying. We're still building the quote career that's happening where this is in real time. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.